As we have been discussing about kleshas, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha and abhinivesa. So these are the 5 kleshas. And of course we discussed in details their functioning. And we also came to a conclusion. It's not that one klesha remains alone. All are together like a family. So when you invite a family, you invite one person, the whole complete family comes, okay? So also here, if avidya comes, of course avidya is a grandmother or a grandfather, okay, great grandfather. So if avidya comes, everybody has to come, there is no choice. And interestingly also when the child comes also, don't worry, parents also grandparent comes, what our child is doing, okay? So it is like a package. So that means wherever there is raga, especially you might have noticed, very visible one, wherever there is ragam, there is also dvesham. That's why we say, to whom you love today, tomorrow don't worry, for the same reason you will hate that person. You can see for yourself. To whom you love, for what reason? For the same reason you will hate that person. It is just a matter of time. So also in reverse way, to whom you hate at this moment, for whatever reason maybe, just hold on to for some more time, you will discover for the same reason you will start loving that person. And if it doesn't happen in this life, don't worry, next life it has to happen. There is no choice because there are few sutras, that's why I have to go ahead with that, okay? So wherever there is raga, there is dvesha. That we all know. So also this asmita, avinivesa, of course avidya is the root cause. So this asmita and avinivesa, because without asmita, raga and dvesha cannot be developed, cannot be sustained. So that means unless I enter inside, will anything will happen? So that there is no choice. And of course so also avinivesa. So looking at all these things now says, look, what is to be done? Okay, I would like to know. Fantastic. All these things really, I understand, fear for death, all these things are fantastic. But is it really for everybody same? Or what do you think of about the people, those who are krutya krutya? So krutya krutya word is, we use the word, the one who has done what is to be done. The one who has achieved what is to be achieved. Jnani ityartha. Oh, here yogi ityartha. So yogi, I don't want to use the word because yogi, everybody talks about yogi, especially if you go to social media. So everybody opens one Facebook account called yogi, okay? Now yogi, adi yogi, mahayogi, I don't know what are yogi, okay? With different type of prefix, suffix, I don't know what are the things, okay? However, coming back to the point here, that what happens to the jnani? So the sutra says very beautifully. Let us look at the sutra, which is really interesting. Te prati prasava heya sukshma. So here he says beautifully that all these kleshas, means all these 5 kleshas, klesha means affliction, okay? So don't ask me klesha, what does it mean, okay? So Rama, Ravana, okay? And you know this, okay? Rama, Ravana and Asura. So finally, who is Asura? Rama or Ravana? So klesha, klesha, then finally you ask, what is klesha? What do you mean by the word klesha? Klesha means affliction. Now, here says that these kleshas, they means what? Pancha klesha. So pancha kleshani. So what are they? So he says, look, klesh. So these 5 kleshas, dagdha bija kalpa. This is a beautiful word he uses. So these 5 kleshas, prati prasava heya sukshmaha. This is the point when he highlights that They are, remember, in a very subtle form. Very next verse also will talk how it is happens. Very subtle means very sukshma, very thin, like invisibly visible. You can use the word invisibly visible. And how is it invisibly visible? He says, look, it has to be in the form of dagdha vijavat. So why we say invisibly visible? Look at this dagdha vija. Dagdha vija means the seed that is being roasted. So a roasted seed. Now roasted seed, is it visible or not? Definitely it's visible. In fact, it's very good for the winter. You understand? Munching, nothing like that. Healthy munching, okay? If it is deep fried, forget. If it is sand fried, wow, so nice, healthy. So that means it is visible. But invisibly, why I am using this word? Because that is not going to germinate. So once the seed is being roasted, if it falls down anywhere by mistake, or you try to plant it, you try to germinate, will it germinate? Definitely it doesn't have capacity to make a plant or whatever sprout to come. So that means it is invisible. The potentiality is invisible, but it is visible. So that's why here he says, look, all these pipes, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesa, these five are available with jnanis. But in the form of what? Dagdha vijavat. And this will continue till the person is alive. Remember this point. That's why a wise cannot say, oh, I am enlightened, I am enlightened. It doesn't work. If the nishtha, please understand, they will say, no, okay, we have especially Yoga Vasishtha talks about this classification of wise. Later on comes Brahma Vidya Varishta with Pujya Swamiji doesn't accept this aspect. However, that when the commitment, because wise, once you are wise, if you are wise, what is their level? Branding wise, okay? You are lesser wise, you are superior wise, you understand? So wise means wise. That means, okay, you are in the process of commitment, you can say, your commitment is improving. Don't name it wise, then after that classify it. That is what Pujya Swamiji's view. However, coming to the point here is that when we need to look at very carefully that a wise person also has this pipe, but in a very subtle form, means does not germinate, does not create any botheration neither for himself or herself nor for others. That has to be very clear and careful. Or else what will happen, if the nishtha becomes little bit other way around, it may not create problem for one's own self, it will create problem for others. Okay, we have a point to know if it creates problem for others, that is others' problem, not his problem. But technically it will be dragged. Like for example, one of the great person in South India, so he was dragged because of small things, so things went other way around later on. As all of you know, technically I cannot bring today. You understand the concept, what I am trying to highlight. Like towards the ashram, related to the ashram. So the court when it came to him, so he said the ashram belongs to his family. So that was the biggest, I would rather say, we cannot say biggest mistake. It is here, there comes, do you know what came? There came that avinivesa. He might not have a raga dvesha, but avinivesa, that whatever has been created, the organization that is created by the family people may get destroyed by others. So that avinivesa, sense of loss took over. Then he said, no, this belongs to family people. Such a great personality, okay? Because we have live examples, okay? Be careful. So what I am highlighting here is, because these are the small points to look at very carefully, that prati prasava heya. Here he says beautifully, this will continue. the death of the wise person. So that means a wise person always with the commitment cannot say, oh, I am now enlightened. You understand? I am now enlightened. Means what? Nothing to do. It's like no politicians, okay? Now I am already a minister. I am already a prime minister. It doesn't work, okay? You know, recently, one person became prime minister, in few days has to resign. There was no choice. So a new person had to come in. It's not like that. So I have become a wise. Now I am a wise. It doesn't work. In fact, the moment I say I am a wise or now I am a wise, that means I don't understand anything. You understand the point? So here, this continues in a very subtle way. So when it continues in subtle way, please remember, the presence, or I would rather say, instead of presence, the grossness of these 5 kleshas creates stronger afflictions in me. The grossness is completely proportional to the affliction, the suffering that I go through in my life. Is it clear? If I am getting afflicted, if there is suffering in my life, so my suffering or affliction is proportional to the grossness of these 5 kleshas. Clear? The grosser they are, don't use the word stronger, okay? The more they are gross, the more suffering I will have or I will go through. So that's why the whole process is nothing for everybody. Whether you are a Swami, whether you are a Brahmachari, whether you are a Grihastha or a Banaprastha, whether you belong to any Varna. So all these things have been created only for this purpose, that how to make these kleshas sukshma, subtle. So subtle means we use the sukshma word they use called tanukaranam. So we'll be seeing, in fact, let us read next so that it becomes easier. How it can be possible? Let us look at dhyana heya tat brutayah. So kleshanam yaha brutayah. So whatever kleshas that you have, all this related to the brutis. And of course, they are stula. So being stula in nature, being gross in nature. So we need to do tanukaranam. So what is tanukaroti? We use the word. What is tanukaranam? Tanukaranam is nothing. If you want to literal English, if you want to say thinning. Okay? So how to thin? Make it thinner. So here tanukaranam, very nicely we need to see, this point is, the example Bhashyakara gives beautifully. It is exactly like washing a cloth. Suppose a cloth that you are washing. How you will wash, ladies, because especially, how you will wash the cloth depends upon what sort of cloth. Which brand? Nowadays that they don't say cloth, they say which brand it, okay? So like some people like, I was shocked. So it seems there are, brands you have to wash in the hand, okay? And you cannot tie it down, okay? I remember once, I cannot forget. I was just bringing, okay, stupidly, but I love it to bring this sort of things. The amount of time people waste in taking care of the clothes is amazing. Because I remember one word called falconry, okay? One brand. Sweater especially. What you have to do? So even if you cannot wash, and after washing you have to keep in the towel. So you have to dry it in the towel, because suppose if you put it there, then the size will change. What is this? Anyway, good. Thank you very much. Some of you agree. Coming back to the topic here. How you take care of that cloth. So, and if that is there is dirt. So what you do? The first dirt, you take it very comfortably fast way. But later on, how you become careful? So each step, you are really careful without spoiling the fabric, without spoiling the shape and size, without spoiling the dress. You keep cleaning carefully, or else what will happen? In the name of cleaning, what you will do? Throw it. People do that, okay? And especially in the name of ironing, many people do it. That you know better, okay? I remember, I cannot forget. If I'm right, I had to go to overseas. And one of the boy in Chennai time, so I ironed the dress. I would rather say, this dress, and one was burnt. And that fellow, because may get scolding, so nicely folded it, kept it. As usual, I said, okay, put it inside. Then after arriving, I discovered there is one big hole. I said, wow, that's really fantastic. So I have gone through everything, okay, don't worry. So, coming back to the point. So how one has to be careful. So also here, Tanukaranam has to be done that careful way. And especially these pipes are me. It's not somebody. That's why if somebody's raga and dvesha is there, I can give a lecture. But when it comes to my raga dvesha, you know better, okay? It doesn't work. So like that, he says, look, this can be done. This Tanukaranam can be made. How? By dhyanam. So one has to dhyanena hatabhyaha iti. So when the person spends time with dhyana, with meditation. So when we use this meditation, let us look at this point also. Dhyanam and meditation, there is a big difference. Generally, we translate dhyanam as meditation, which is technically wrong. Because this is again, this English translation, how it has come. Because when you meditate, now meditating on what? Somebody says, I am meditating upon what? Soundless sound. Nowadays, okay, new. Soundless sound. I didn't understand, okay. It took some time for me, okay. I said, what is that soundless sound? Because these are confusing words, and this works actually, I'll tell you. Now we'll have soundless sound meditation. Wow, people will be idiots in a queue, okay? Don't worry. People love this, okay? So I said, what is that soundless sound? Swamiji, you don't understand what is soundless sound? I said, no, please. Swamiji, this is Omkar. I said, I said, will you please explain how it is called soundless sound? Swamiji, this Omkar is beyond sound. I said, okay. What is this beyond sound? But this is here you are making sound. No, Swamiji, still you don't understand. So that means you need to go through our initiation. So then only you will understand. I said, okay, thank you very much. And it works. So how to increase people in life? However, that is their problem, not our problem. So here is being said, dhyanam, we cannot use the meditation. That's why in our book, Meditation, we have talked in details. That different types of meditation. Now, when we say dhyanam, now there should be an object called dheyam. Without dheyam, the object that is to be meditated upon, can there be any dhyanam? And of course, the dhyata, the one who is meditating, also is to be there. Now, in so-called dhyana or meditation, I would rather say, what happens? Dhyam is not looked at. And what is dhyam? Dhyam, the object that is to be meditated upon, has to be higher than you. Get my point, what I am trying to say? If you meditate upon something, that one does not have sukshma, the topic here is, if that object of meditation does not have sukshma pancha klesha, subtle 5 kleshas, subtler than you, will you be able to meditate upon? Will it be beneficial to you? Will it work? See the technical point, how it works. Whereas when you say meditation, in one word, you wash the hand. And in fact, you give the freedom to the mind. And as you know, once we give freedom to the mind, what does the mind do? You know better, okay? You have seen for yourself every day. So that's why dhyanam at no time to be translated as meditation. These are the words we have to retain as it is. So here he says, dhyanam, now dwelling upon. So by doing this, of course we'll be seeing the next sutra, that's why I'm building it up. So when you start dwelling upon, now this pancha kleshas is going to become thinner. How and why you can see very carefully, clearly. Like, for example, when you start dwelling upon parvata. So parvata means mountain. So mountain does not have raga and dvesha as we all have. I won't say doesn't have, has also has, okay? Don't worry, okay? Mountain does not have stronger, okay, raga, dvesha as we all have. That's the better word. Mountain also has, okay? That's why the best example is when you look at this mountain, especially Himalaya group of mountains which is alive. So represented by the king called Himaraja. So what happened? He had his likes and dislikes. In fact, when Ganga was asked to go to heaven, he said, no, I don't want to give her. I have lost all my daughters, only one daughter, how can I give? A lot of issues had happened. But remember, the Parvata does not have that stronger likes and dislikes. This is the point, okay? This is what, because that's why, in fact, they said this like this, that the Himaraja did not want to be liberated because he wanted to continue to serve. That's another aspect is being talked. Let us not get into that point. This is Puranic aspect. So here we need to see that when a person dwells upon mountain, the sthirata, the stability automatically comes. Whereas when you start dwelling upon cyclone, you understand? What will happen? You know better. So not only there will be cyclone in your life, you will become cyclone for others also, okay? That's the problem. So here one small aspect, how it happens. That's why when you start dwelling upon, when you do dhyanam, accordingly the kleshas gets subtler, becomes thinner. So when it's a subtler, thinner, you can see, you can feel for yourself. When you spend in Japam, especially, I hope Yesterday being eclipse, you might have spent some time in japam, okay? Hopefully. If not, better do some japam, okay? So yesterday was a very good time to do japam. So when you spend time in japam, even if you take the help of mantras, your vasanas, or you can say this kleshas, now we can talk klesha, will come. Now in the beginning, it will create issues. Later on what happens? It will come and go without your knowledge. It will keep coming and going. Finally you will discover it will come and go without your knowledge, means without creating any disturbance to you. So that's why when you do long japa, not 108 times, okay? It doesn't work, okay? So 108 doesn't help, to be very honest, okay? It maintains. It is appetizer, okay? But you can say, Swamiji, this 108 is very difficult for us. You are talking appetizer. Please don't. You don't understand, because you are like one person told, Swamiji doesn't have anything to do with, so only he wants to have class. He has to understand what we are doing it. Cretina. However, coming to the point. So, what I am highlighting here is that this 108 which doesn't work. So spend time, then you will see. So how this japam helps not to slow down. You think slowing down. Here I am not talking slowing down. Here is thinning. So there is a difference between slowing down, postponing and thinning. So now question may arise, how do you say this? That there is a difference between slowing down, postponing and thinning. Let us read the next sutra, which really talks very nicely and carefully. Klesha moolah karmasayah drushta adrushta janma vedaniyah. Says that when you look at this klesha, so the klesha moolam, the root of all the kleshas, takes in shelter in karma. Karma asayah, karmanam asrayah iti. So that means all these kleshas has its roots where? In karma, in action. And how? Dharma, adharma rupena. So, karma is being classified. The action is being classified into two categories. One is called dharma, other one is called adharma. No sound. So, what is this dharma and adharma? Who is going to say it is dharma or it is adharma? Can I say? Can somebody say? Can constitution say? Please, it's a very basic question. Dharma, adharma, constitution has no right to say. Right or wrong, please understand. Constitution cannot say. That's why what happens? You have courts after courts. And whatever is appealed in the higher court, again if it goes to some other court, if there is, they will say it is wrong or it is right or it is to be improved. You understand? Because the constitution, why cannot say what is dharma and adharma? Let us look at this aspect very carefully. Because constitution tries to bring a superficial harmony externally. Please understand very carefully. The job of the constitution is nothing to bring a superficial harmony externally. Am I right or not? Whereas the constitution has no right or has no role, I would rather say, to bring or to create harmony in me, myself. That's why the Dharma and Adharma Sangya means definition, comes from what? Comes from Shastra. The Shastra defines what is Dharma and what is Adharma. So this Shastra again was translated as what? Scriptures. Again, big mistake, blunder. Because Shastra cannot be translated as scripture. Because what is Shastra definition? This is called, without Sanskrit knowledge, this is the problem happens. This is called pep talks. What is Shastra? Anadhigata, avadhita, jnana janakam iti Shastra. So that is called, if you want to say scripture, okay? With a big quote, okay? So that is called scripture or that is called Shastra. Because later on I am going to remove the word scripture, okay? Which is anadhigatam. That means this subject matter has never discussed anywhere. It is nowhere. First time. That is the source. Suppose if my eyes are already seeing that it is yellow, now some book says, hey, this is yellow. You cannot consider that as Shastra. Because already my pramana says, other pramana says, means of knowledge says. So that means that is called Shastra Jnanam. That Jnanam which is not available by any other pramanas means of knowledge. Number one. Anadhikata. Second thing is called avadhita. So badhita means subject to negation. Here is opposite. It will never go for negation. At no time Shastra can be negated. So that means if there is amendment like you have in the constitution. So also if the Shastra starts amending, gets amended, new amendment, new testament, this, that, what does it mean? So can you call that as Shastra? And thirdly, it's called Jnana Janakam. So it has to generate knowledge, not impose. That's why it has to be also contradiction free. Today, whatever is talked, tomorrow it must not contradict. In the first portion of Shastra talks something, last person talks differently. Is not acceptable. That is not Shastra either. So that means here, Shastra cannot be called as a scripture. Can you see this point? Whereas these Britishers, they came, their propaganda is what? To promote the Bible. That's why they translated as what? Shastra means scripture. Then Bible also is scripture. And of course other people, other religion people also try to pick up. However, let us not get into. Here he says, Shastra is only that can highlight, that can point out what is Dharma and what is Adharma. Because that we have to be very clear, this aspect. And he says, karma only depends upon, or karma's shelter is in Dharma and Adharma. So when he says Dharma and Adharma, so how to look at? He says, look, karma will fructify. Either in drishta, that is what the sutra says very nicely, that karma will fructify drishta adrishta janma vedaniya. Either it will fructify in this life or in different lives, adrishta. So that means in this life also, whatever we are going through, fructifying, don't worry, it is not only the karma that we have done in this life, also our previous lives. Remember this point. Especially today, with whom you are staying, whether it is your father, mother, wife, husband, children, grandchildren, including your dog, okay, if you have. Remember, all are your previous karma phala, okay? Previous life karma phala. Please be clear in this regard. You didn't decide anything, because I am seeing for myself, okay? I never decided, I never thought of that I will have you all people in my life, okay? This I am very clear, okay? But in spite of that, look, I am going through. So definitely, my previous life, there is no doubt in it. And that should know, pravana matra. It's not ordinary, okay? Very strong. Sometimes I want to wash my hand. I want to get rid. I'm not telling you jokes. I am not able to get rid of. So that means what? So here, adrushta phalam works for me. I don't know whether you accept me or not. But okay, anyway. Sometimes you might be also trying to get rid of the Swamis too much. But still, it doesn't work, okay? However, coming back to the point. So this drushtarupena, adrushtarupena, in the form of fructification, that will happen in this life or in coming lives. Now, how we look at, very nicely says, please understand, we have a lot of things to talk. He says, look, how you look at. Generally, when a person does, what does it do? Tibra vegena, with intensity. Mantra, tapa, samadhi, nivartita, ishvara devata, maharshi, mahanubhavan, aradhanat ba. You just say series. Mantra. You spend time chanting mantra. Like how Dhruva and Prahlada did japam, small boy. Dhruva did, and he had Dhruva Padam. And if we try to look at tapas, austerity, like for example Bhagiratha did tapas, because of his tapas, now Bhagirathi the Ganga is mother here available with us. And also coming to the point, samadhi, through the samadhi, there are many things also has happened. There are many stories are there related to that. And of course, Ishvara Devata, by worshipping Ishvara, Devata, all the Ishta Devatas, Devata means Ishta Devata, your own deity, Maharshi, Rishis, wise people, Mahanubhavan, respected people, by serving under Guru, all these things comes. By serving them, also what happens? You earn Dharma. So these are the source of Dharma. So when it talks about Dharma, Shastra highlights these are the points. Dharma is that where neither I create conflict nor I entertain any conflict. In short, Dharma means neither I create conflict nor I entertain or encourage conflict. Because if you look at a group of people, those who produce terrorists, because their dharma says that more you kill others in the name of your God, the better place you have. So if you look at them, they don't have conflict. They are very clear. But they create conflict outside. Can you see this point? They might not have conflict, but they perpetuate conflict, they create conflict for others. So that's why we can see the definition very carefully. Of course, it's subject to, this is just for understanding saying, but this is not ultimate, because Shastra only can say what is Dharma, what is Adharma, not anybody. That should not create any conflict in me. At the same time, I must not entertain or perpetuate any sort of conflict, directly / indirectly. Can you see this point? This is called Dharma. So that's why gives the classifications, these are the Dharma. And what is Adharma? So Adharma, so here he says, look, if the person does this thing, what happens? We have beautiful concept of Dharma. Like he gives the example of, I will not get into, Yatha Nandishwaraha Kumaraha Manishya Parinamaha Hitva Devatvena Parinataha. So he says, look, how this Nandi became Devata and called Nandishwara. And also Nahusha. We have a lot of examples in this regard. How he went other way around. So that means a human being by mantra, japa, tapa, seva can become a devata. Also a devata, because of adharma, can come down. So that means our life is governed with what? Completely adharma and dharma. So that means when we try to look at dharma and adharma has nothing to do with right or wrong. Because right means I may be right at this moment. Maybe by you all I am right. Next moment I need not be right. Or some other people at this moment may not accept me as right. So this right and wrong does not define dharma clearly, properly. So that's why one has to see it very carefully, how this dharma really functions. So in short, that is called dharma for me. That where I don't go through any internal conflict, nor I create any external conflict. Can you see this point? I try my best not only to resolve my conflict, also I try my best to resolve external conflict too. That's why they say beautifully, you might have observed. I was listening to one, you know this social media is a waste of time. Because especially Facebook only creates depression. I have never seen that Facebook gives you anything unless you are smart to use. WhatsApp is nothing. Only you can use WhatsApp for what? If you cannot reach your home or any person for emergency, you can use WhatsApp. Not even if saving time, saving money. That is also ridiculous. Because to maintain that, again you have to pay data, lot of things. You understand? For emergency sake, when you cannot reach somebody online or overseas sake, it's good. That is very good in WhatsApp, okay? However, let us not get into too much. So I was going through one beautiful clip. Sometimes I do go through. That's why these are the small things really opens up. Accept these things. A father gives advice to his daughter during marriage time. Amazing. Says, look, I don't like my daughter to cry while leaving this house. Remember, this house is always for you. You don't have to feel that you are leaving this house. In front of the husband, says son-in-law. And let me tell you 2 points that to be remembered. whenever there is some discussion between you and especially your husband, never ever go to bed without resolving it, without attending to it. It's an amazing piece of information. Never ever go to bed without resolving or attending to the discussion that has happened between you and your husband. And also remember, at the end of the discussion, your aim is nothing but to get defeated. At the end of the discussion, your aim is nothing but to get defeated. By getting defeated in the discussion, you will win over your husband. If you try to win over upon your husband, you will lose your husband. And also, remember that life is nothing but to accommodate everybody, including you being the last. And this house is always open for you. And I don't like my daughter to shed the tears while leaving the house. What a piece of information. So, what I'm highlighting here, this aspect here is, in a relationship, when we, let us say, get defeated in the argument, do we win over that relationship or not? In fact, if you observe that knowingly when you get defeated, knowingly, you protect the relationship. Have you not done sometimes? Yes, sometimes when you get to keep defeated, the person thinks you are weaker. That's another aspect of it also you need to look at. But why the person looks at you as weaker? Because time to time you show your weakness. Or stupidity, not weakness, you show your stupidity. So that means how this works, getting defeated you win, this is the point I stressed. Here also the definition of Dharma. Sometimes while going through the pain, internal conflict, you do Dharma. Can you see this point? Sometimes, by going through internal conflict, you do Dharma. Because maybe you are addressing what? Please understand, your kleshas. And when my raga, dvesha, asmita especially is so strong, now anything I do, it has to create conflict in me. It's not so quickly going to accept. So that's why what is to be done? I also need to work with me. That's why Dharma and Adharma to be understood carefully. If not, what will happen? Remember, this karma phalam is going to fructify. Either in this life or coming lives. With this, I'll stop. Remember, what we don't want, that will happen in life. And moreover, in coming lives, if we do not take care of it, exactly whom we have hate in this life, whom we have successfully managed to escape. Those people, I'm not telling you jokes, will be for you as your closest people. They will be available in the form of parents, where you cannot do anything. You understand? They will be available in the form of children, where you cannot do anything. Because wife and husband nowadays, you can get rid of it, okay? That's why I'm not giving the example of wife and husband, okay? So that's why let us be very clear and careful. More of it we'll see. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.